Hello everyone. Now we'll move to our next discussion, which is in the backdrop of economic geography. Obviously, we already have discussed a few topics related to the economic geography, and it is not that we haven't discussed, but as a topic of economic geography, we'll take up few of the issues in this session. Few things I just wanted to tell you. As far as the syllabus is concerned, as far as the topics are concerned, you will find the economic geography is part of your chapter number 7 of paper 1. So, there are some topics that are given in chapter 7 related to the economic geography, but don't just try to read the topics, because generally what is the approach, what's the approach the students follow? The approach the students follow is just go through with the topics that are written in the chapter and relying on that the question will be asked on the same topic. So, you need to understand that the topics of human and economic geographies are very dynamic in nature. So, it's highly unlikely that the examiner will directly ask the question like, what do you understand by growth and how it is different from the development, or what is the human development and how it is different from the economic growth. So, rather than just expecting that whatever you are going to study in one particular topic, you will be able to use that as a content. Your approach should be to look out that whatever you are going to study here, where you can use it. So, in other units, which is the other area units topics where you can use the knowledge that you will gain, the content you will study as part of your economic geography, and you should try to use it. So, your approach should not be only to just study the things, but also your approach should be to write some aspect. Like let us say you have studied the primate city. Now, don't expect that the primate city concept you will write only when it will be asked, like write a short note on the primate city, discuss the primate city concept. Even when you are writing the topics like the urban problems, when you are writing the problems like metropolitan cities are very big and they are facing a huge crisis of, let us say, transport, let us say drainage facility, or you are writing about the urban flood. So, there also try to incorporate 1 or 2 pointers related to the primate city. And when you will do this, then only first of all you will make your answers geographical, because geographical doesn't mean that you are just incorporating the theory as it is. थ्योरी लिखने से आंसर आपका या किसी थिंकर्स को कोट करने से आंसर आपका ज्योग्राफिकल नहीं होगा, वो एक it will just you can say give you a feel good factor, but not to the examiner. Examiner, if you want to almost show the examiner the intellectual depth, तो intellectual depth आप तभी शो कर सकते हैं, तभी आप intellectual depth शो कर सकते हैं when you have studied something and now you are writing, you are analyzing something, and you are just looking the phenomena of urbanization with respect to the primacy. Where the primacy? In reality, we don't have the primacy, but yes, primacy appears to be existing in Mumbai, in Delhi, in Chennai, in Kolkata. So, whatever you will learn in the economic geography, try to use in regional development. Because in economic geography, let us say we are discussing the topic of economic growth versus development. Now, this is here we are talking about the generalized development. But when you are looking out for the regional development, we are looking out for a specialized development. But development will be same, the component, the element of development is going to be same. So in the development, either you can look out for the growth pole concept, or you can look out for the core periphery model, or you can talk about the Wallerstein's world system concept, or even you can talk about the Rostov's model. Or even you can also think about the idea of Karl Marx about the development. Development is not going to change. So जो डेवलपमेंट की आपकी बात इकोनॉमिक ज्योग्राफी में, वही डेवलपमेंट आपका रीजनल डेवलपमेंट में रहने वाला. इवन व्हेन यू विल लुक आउट द रीजनल डेवलपमेंट एंड प्लानिंग ऑफ पेपर 2, वहां पे भी द सेम काइंड ऑफ डेवलपमेंट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट. सो द पॉइंट दैट आई एम ट्राइंग टू मेक यू अंडरस्टैंड, डोंट थिंक दैट कि अगर आपने रोस्टोव पढ़ा, रोस्टोव हैज टॉक्ड अबाउट द development, whatever the economic growth will happen, economic growth will result into the socio-economic development. और जो development होगा, that will only happen in the stages. You can say he belongs to the historical economic geographer. So he believes in the almost temporal changes. कि कोई भी चीज है temporal ही हो सकती है. ये उसी तरीके से है जैसे आपने let's say graduation ज्वाइन किया. So graduation, once you will take admission in any of the university, let's say DU or IIT or anywhere, तो अगर आप ज्वाइन करेंगे, अगर आप एडमिशन लेंगे, तो आपके पास कितनी भी इंटेलेक्चुअल डेप्थ हो, कितनी भी आपके पास कैपेसिटी हो कि इन 1 year you are capable of reading let's say hundreds of books, you are capable of giving the examination of 10, 20, 30, 40 papers. Irrespective of that, you will get the सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ ग्रेजुएशन ओनली आफ्टर 3 years. उसके पहले आपको मिलेगा ही नहीं. सो दिस इज योर हिस्टोरिकल डेवलपमेंट, टेम्पोरल डेवलपमेंट, कि उसमें टाइम आपको देना ही पड़ेगा. बट इन यूपीएससी वी आर नॉट हैविंग द टेम्पोरल डेवलपमेंट. इफ यू आर कैपेबल एनफ, यू विल क्वालिफाई इन द फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट. अगर आपने सारी चीजें कर ली और नहीं करी, तो आपको हो सकता है 4 साल बाद भी नहीं आप क्वालिफाई करेंगे. सो द रोस्टोव was talking about that. So when Rostov have talked this, तो आपकी एक्सपेक्टेशन होगी कि एग्जाम में ओनली द रोस्टोव शुड बी आस्क्ड, और फिर हम तो रोस्टोव को लिखेंगे. अब 2018 के बाद डायरेक्ट रोस्टोव नहीं आया, डायरेक्ट रोस्टोव नहीं पूछा गया. इट डजंट मीन दैट द रोस्टोव कैनॉट बी यूज्ड इन सम अदर क्वेश्चंस. रोस्टोव्स आइडिया, be it in the form of critical form, be it in the form of the particularly in positive way, you can use the idea, you can use the idea. Even when you are writing about your agricultural development, in agricultural development also you can bring the Rostov in different manner. Like in our agriculture, you will find, if you will look out the agricultural development of our country, you will find that before 1970s we were having mostly the agriculture was being performed as a primitive, as a rudimentary form of agriculture. Earlier it was shifting cultivation, then in some area it has almost majority part of the area we were going for the subsistence agriculture. So from the shifting to subsistence, and after subsistence we have started incorporating some stimuli, because the Rostov has talked about some external influence. External influence आपका fertilizer हो सकता है, external influence आपका tractor, threshers, machinery हो सकता है, external influence it can be your capital. So when the external assistance has been given, the agriculture have started performing. So you will have which we call as a green revolution. So it's all about your how you are understanding, and not only understanding, you need to force yourself that in which other part of your syllabus you can utilize the concept. और कॉन्सेप्ट आप ऐसा यूटिलाइज करिए कि जहां पे ये ना लगे कि आप केवल कॉन्सेप्ट लिख रहे हैं, आप पूरा वही चीज दोबारा से लिख रहे हैं. So never ever try to give an impression to the examiner कि अगर आप industrial development लिख रहे हैं, so you are just started writing about the industrial model of the Weber. वैसा नहीं करिए. Let's say you are talking about the agricultural development and you have started writing about all things that is being suggested by the Rostov. No. Or might be you are critically analyzing some of the growth of our country and you have started writing about all the things of Neo-Malthusian limits to growth. So this is one thing that will help you in whole economic geography. And in fact, this is the reason why most of the students find it difficult to tackle the questions of human and economic geography. Human and economic geography appears to, for some students, their thought process is that it is very difficult on two counts. पहला तो ये है कि they think that we need to remember lots of names, lots of philosophers को हमें पढ़ना है. तो that is completely a you can say wrong notion. जो भी आपको philosopher, जो भी आपको thinkers पढ़ना है, you can minimize it by just having the idea that how the geography as a discipline has evolved, and in that evolution what were the different approaches, what were the different methodology that is being followed. तो आप उस तरीके से कर लीजिए. Coming to the other part of your economic and human geography, one set of the student they consider that it is only purely contemporary in nature. तो जो भी आपके इर्द गिर्द हो रहा है न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ेंगे और हम कर लेंगे. That is also a wrong approach. It's not only the contemporary. Until unless you have a sound understanding about the economic geography, what is the true nature of the economic geography, what is the main purpose of the economic geographers. Because अगर केवल कंटेम्प्रेरी ही पढ़ना है, अगर केवल आपको डेटा फैक्ट्स ही जानना है, तो वी हैव द इकोनॉमी एज अ सब्जेक्ट. व्हाट इज द नीड ऑफ इकोनॉमिक ज्योग्राफी? इकोनॉमिक ज्योग्राफी प्राइमरली लुक्स आउट द वेरिएशन in both the sense, spatial variation and temporal variation. So we are not much concerned about the production, we are not much concerned about the consumption, we are not much concerned about the exchange. So production, consumption, exchange से ज़्यादा जो जरूरी है that is distribution. Distribution is more important, and in distribution aspect obviously more toward the production as compared to the exchange and the consumption. That is the true nature of the economic geography. In all the area, be it your regional development, be it your agriculture, be it your industry, be it your trade, transport, communication. In all the area, the economic geography tries to look out the distribution. तो जब आप आंसर भी लिखेंगे, आंसर में अगर आप देखिए, if you are writing some of the answers of agriculture, if you are writing some of the answers of industry, if you are not able to identify the distribution in whatever the sense, let's say you are writing about the agricultural problem, अब आपने लिखना शुरू कर दिया कि we have the agriculture problem like capital is missing, like we are not having the investment, agriculture productivity is very low, farmers output is very low, most of the farmers they are not very efficient, they are not skilled. तो इस तरीके से जब आप pointers लिखेंगे, it will be more like a GS, very generalized. उस पे आपको examiner is not going to appreciate, because examiner is not expecting something like this from you. Examiner is expecting when you will write the agricultural productivity is low, so you will identify that in which area agricultural productivity is low. Throughout the country agricultural productivity is not low. We have very high agricultural productivity in the green revolution area, we have a very high agricultural productivity in particular some of the area. And not only that, agricultural productivity is not only associated with the region, but also it is associated with the crops. So crops like rice and wheat, we have very high agricultural productivity. But when it comes to the pulses, when it comes to the some of the other crops, so agricultural productivity is very low. So this is how you need to present. This is how you need to present, and when you will present this, and then you can use some of the contemporary data, relevant data fact. So economic geography sometimes appears to be difficult, not because, or some of the student finds that they are not getting the good marks in the economic geography. So it is not that simply you are not having the conceptual clarity या आपने वो topic नहीं पढ़ा. इकोनॉमिक ज्योग्राफी में आप ये समझिए कि इकोनॉमिक ज्योग्राफी में हमें किस तरीके से अप्रोच करना है, व्हाट शुड बी आवर अप्रोच. एंड इफ योर अप्रोच इज नॉट दिस लुकिंग आउट द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन, लुकिंग आउट द इफ वट एवर द phenomena we are discussing, we need to just focus on the distribution, both spatial as well as temporal. This is also we call it as core of economic geography. Core of economic geography, that is temporal and spatial distribution which distinguished it from the economy. So, how this economic geography is different from the economy? Always remember, this is your distribution. The distribution will make the economic geography different. इसके अलावा और कोई मेजर डिफरेंस आपको नहीं मिलेगा. So let's quick discussion. The first is our growth versus development discussion. In this growth versus development, always remember, in general we call it as economic growth and economic development. Some of the geographers don't use this economic, they use rather human development. But economic development is also being used. So, don't have this misconception that development will always be human development, economic development is also being used. This economic growth and economic development is not a new concept. It is not something that is being only discussed in last few decades or years. So, please be very clear. In general, some of the characteristic we can talk about, but this characteristic, please be very clear that we are, whatever the characteristic we will look out, this is relevant for the present time period. So, it was not prevalent in the earlier time period, let us say 30-40 years back, and might be this distinction could be changed in the future. So, it is a primarily quantitative in nature, this is qualitative in nature. It is quantitative, so it can be increase or decrease. So, it can be both positive, negative. It is because qualitative, so it will always be increasing. Only positive changes can happen. Few of the indicator that is being used is GDP, GNP, NNP, GVA, per capita income. Some of the indicators used like Human Development Index, you will have a literacy, you will have a gender gap, you will have a education, healthcare, growth can happen without development. Economic development or simply development, human development, is not possible without economic growth. It simply means that the first growth will happen, then only development, but also every time it is not possible that the growth will result into development. Growth is not necessarily result into development. So, it may be, it can be, it can't. So, now, we also refer this development as something that which is bringing some real change in whole personality, in whole lifestyle. So, personality, livings, thinking, all the changes is simply referred as development. But here comes very important thing. Whatever we have discussed about this economic growth versus development is the present time period. Even in the present time period, your environment is also considered as, it's not only the money, but in which environment we have. So, improvement in the environment, better environment, freedom at all the level, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Then you will have food choices. So, freedom of food choices. Then you will have clothing, in all the sense. Now, if you will look back just a few decades, or you can say in last century, when this debate of growth and development has started. So, in initial the classical economic model, the thought process was that almost in the early 20th century, economic growth and economic development has been considered similar. So, in earlier time period, the thought process was that economic growth and economic development is something that will move parallelly. So, economic development, if you want, the only way out is economic growth. And the thought process was that economic growth is simply development. So, their thought process was to just increase the per capita income, their thought process was to just increase the GDP. तो अगर हम GDP, GNP ये बढ़ाते जाएंगे तो डेवलपमेंट होता जाएगा. So, almost in first half of the 20th century, you will find that the development was being considered as simply the economic growth, and from that only you will have in most of the places we have the economic models, specifically the capitalism. So, capitalism has been promoted mainly in this hope. See, I as a particularly geographer, or after analyzing all the things, I will not say that it was only promoted and they were knowing all the things, because if you will look out the Karl Marx or Marxist ideology, so Marxist ideology will say that no, capitalism they were knowing in advance, or even at this present time period when you will look out some of the events, some of the things that has happened, so obviously it will give an impression that the capitalism has been almost, you can say, justified, and capitalism when it has been introduced, so definitely there was having some thought process that how the development will happen or how the economic growth will happen. But in general, my analysis says that when they have started this capitalism, so obviously they were not thinking that much, or they were not looking out for that. Their thought process was that we need to devise some methodology, we need to devise some models in which the economic growth should happen, because their idea was that let's say first of all we need to harness the energy. अगर हम energy मिल जाएगी, अगर हम electricity produce कर लेंगे, we will run the machines. We will run the machine, and once we will run the machine, we will manufacture some of the machine made goods. तो जो goods होंगे वो ज़्यादा large quantity में goods can be produced, and if the goods can be produced in large quantity, definitely we can take it to the masses. And when we have the mass, particularly large quantity goods, and it is being manufactured with the minimum effort and the less price, so obviously the prices of the good can reduce, and if the prices of the goods will reduce, definitely all the people will be capable of affording the goods. So on one side we are increasing the production, and on the other side also we are creating the demand. How we are creating the demand? We are creating the demand by just decreasing the price. Decreasing the price is not the forceful decrease, rather it should be based on the market, and in the market it will be less when there is a less cost of production. So that was how the capitalism has been almost incorporated. And capitalism thought process was that if you will have the capitalism, obviously their thought process was to just improve the economic growth. Economic growth को अगर हम बढ़ाएंगे, if we will improve the economic growth, obviously development will happen. That was the initial thought process. But after the Second World War, once the Second World War happened, after that there was a lot of discontentment, and some of that discontentment has highlighted with some of the issues, some of the phenomena that have started happening, specifically is associated with your Cold War time period. And obviously that was the time period when Marxist ideology, Marxist have propagated his idea through the Communist Manifesto. So in the Communist Manifesto, he tried to almost blame that each and every problem that is persisting in the societies, be it related to the less development, be it related to the socio-economic problems, be it related to the poverty, be it related to the healthcare, be it related to the economic, in all the cases, he simply suggested that the problem is only just because of the capitalism. Only just because of the capitalism. So here also, this was the main problem with that. This was the main problem. The problem that he has identified, the Marxist ideology, or in geography we talk about the radicalism. So जो भी problems identify किया था, problems was comparatively better. Problems was very reasonable, very rational. But the way they have almost generalized that almost the root cause of all these problems is the capitalism. So almost that is why the radicalism has been completely, you can say, rejected. But radicalism as a model has been rejected. The government has started looking out to some way out to just tackle this issue, and then as a part of your approach and technique of the discipline evolution, the welfareism has been evolved, humanism has been evolved. लेकिन अगर हम उसकी बात करें, उसको छोड़कर हम in general the government की approach की बात करें, government have also started giving some of the, you can say, benefit through the scheme, policies and all. But at the same time, the main problems identified by the Marxists were comparatively very as I said, it was rational. So the point that they have raised, the point that they have highlighted, based on that, in economic geography, primarily some of the economic geographers try to look out that how this distribution is, how this variation is, and how the capitalism is trying to bring some form of the inequalities, how the capitalism is coming out to almost have this kind of distinction within the society. And when almost new economic models have been developed, so in the new economic model, some of the theorists have started taking the capitalism as bane, and some of the economic geographers have started taking as a boon. So almost you can say the whole economic geographers, all the economic geographers have been divided in two branches. One of the who were supporting the capitalism, and one who were not supporting the capitalism. Rather, almost within that backdrop, 2-3 models have been developed. But later on, it came to light that the problem is not the capitalism. Problem is not about the that we should just uproot this capitalism, abolish this capitalism, and we should go for the socialism. The solution is, or you can say the way out is, first look out the economic growth and development. So, economic growth and development has been redefined, that what is the true meaning of the development. Whether development is simply about the growth or development is something else. So, within that backdrop, it came to light that this economic the development doesn't mean the growth. So, might be the economically we are growing, but mentally we are becoming weak, and if mentally we are becoming weak, that is not development. Or might be the person is having so much money, but he is unable to read, write, and their children are not going to the schools and they are just participating in the business. So, that is not the development. Development is having some of the, you can say, all right. So, this was almost, you can say, the new approach evolved in the 60s, 70s in the 20th century, but then came bigger problem. Then it came that if simply we are considering that these are the something which is referred as development, then it will become a vague concept, because if we want to conceptualize, if we want to formalize, obviously we need to look out that on what basis we are going to refer that yes, it is a particularly development. So, in that process we will have the new models, new concept have been evolved. One very important concept that has been evolved by the very famous Mahbub Haq, and then it has been also contributed by the Amartya Sen. So, Amartya Sen of India and the Mahbub Haq of Pakistan, they have conceptualized a very important model, that is Human Development Index. So, Human Development Index is based on the primarily the education, primarily based on the per capita income and literacy, your per capita income, and also the health. So, based on 4 different elements, the Human Development Index is being calculated. Primarily it is life expectancy, expected years of schooling, mean years of schooling, per capita income. So, based on these, the HDI is being calculated, and based on the HDI value, the different countries is being almost grouped in different categories, and then it is being said that the development is these countries are developed, these countries are less developed. But even if you will look out this concept is also very narrow concept, because development is not only that related to this those countries that are just doing well in these 3 indicators, they will be considered as development. Development is also it's much more beyond you can say these indicators concept. Let me tell you let me give you very good examples. If you will look out the HDI, so on the HDI, India's position you will find roughly 131, like up to as per 2020 report. It will find that it is 131 out of 189. So, India's performance in the HDI happens to be very poor, there is no doubt about it. You will find some of the countries, like you will have the Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's position, Sri Lanka's HDI happens to be almost, you can say, 60s. So, it is very less, but what you will do with that development? If might be that development is a flawed, that development is not visible on the ground. So, you also need to understand that we need not to just rely on that 3-4 element, because HDI is much more beyond that 3-4 indicator. Even in that backdrop, a happiness index have been suggested by the Bhutan, and Bhutan happens to be one of the most happy country. Also, you will have a modern concept related to the environment, because environment, climate change is becoming a very big issue in worldwide, and in that you will find we have a sustainable development concept. In sustainable development, the thought process is, obviously we need to look out for the economic growth. economic growth is very important, but economic growth should not be on the cost of particularly affecting the environment. So, this sustainable development concept is simply believes that we need to keep on doing the development, but this development should also take care our future generation. So, we should not harness, we should not use the resources that is actually meant for the future generation, because one thing that you all need to understand, in one way or other in the modern time period, and that is how this world is functioning. Throughout the world you will find people are almost expecting to have more and more resources, people are expecting to have more and more money, they want to control more and more territory, but you need to understand no one is having the particularly you can say all the things that is present on the earth surface belongs to all, and in a way we are just here for few, you can say, time period. If you will look out this time period, almost humans are living for 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, at max 100 years. So, that time period you will find is very minuscule as compared to the age of earth. So, with that respect, we are all just allowed to share some of the resources that are present on this earth surface, and we need not to forget that. But obviously, over the period of time, the technological development and all the, in the backdrop of all these things, we are almost harnessing, so much resources, we are extracting so much resources which has almost exceeded the carrying capacity of earth. Then we will have very famous earth should day concept, which is the concept which is particularly believing, which is calculation that, let us say, earth is having natural resources, and if in 1 year, let us say 365 days, the resources is sufficient for how many days? Anyway, so all these, whatever the development or whatever this environmental problem is, whatever this excess harnessing is, everything is just in the hope that we should have a development. Now, economic growth is for the development. Every country, because this is very important. Development is different, growth is different, but development will not happen without the growth. So, always remember, whenever you will write answers related to the energy consumption, water consumption, whenever you will write the answer related to the pollution, always remember this point. This point is going to be very important aspect. I must have told you, and you need to know. Let us say we know that the burning of fossil fuel is going to be problematic. So, burning of fossil fuel affects the environment, and there will be release of the greenhouse gases, and the global warming, our temperature is rising and it will be further rise. So, what approach we should follow? Obviously, we need to look out for the clean energy, but the clean energy is so, the clean energy prices, the costing of clean energy is so high that it is very difficult for the country like India to completely shift to the clean energy. तो अब आप सवाल ये उठता है कि हम क्लीन एनर्जी का वेट करें या वी शुड कंटिन्यू टू हैव दैट हार्नेसिंग ऑफ द कोल, बर्निंग ऑफ द कोल. तो burning of the coal will almost, you can say, pollute our environment. So, what should we do? So, here you need to understand, we have the millions of population who is not having any source of energy to just prepare the food, prepare the 2 times meal. तो उनके लिए food is more important or the environment. So, you need to be realistic. Yes, we are almost, you can say, bound to protect the environment, but also we need to look out the reality. People living in the coastal area, let us say, people living in the coastal area, and they are not having any other things other than just relying on the coastal resources. So, if coastal resources are getting affected, impacted, so what should they do? Whether they should stop consuming that coastal resources, that is not possibility. It is like mostly the people living in the forest area, tribals. So we can declare some area as a let's say protected reserve. So if we will declare the area as a protected reserve, and if the people are living over there and people are relying on that resources, so obviously what the people will do? People will be forced to go for the displacement. Or agar people is going for the displacement, so obviously the problems will become more problematic. Because if someone is living in the forest area, let's say they have lived for the 40 years, 50 years, and they are not having any other things to do, they are not having any other resources. Like अगर आप plain area में देखेंगे, the people living out of the forest, so obviously they will have some land. तो land है तो वो agricultural activity करेंगे. But what about the people living in the forest? They are not having the land. तो अगर आप उनसे forest का rights ले लेंगे, उनको वहाँ रहने ही नहीं देंगे, so obviously the things will become more problematic. So within that backdrop, you always remember that yes, every country should aspire for development. Every country should aspire for the development. In the modern time period, development is more important as compared to growth. But this development, we are propagating that this development should be sustainable. But sustainable development doesn't mean that there should not be growth. So if anywhere the sustainable development is compromising, it doesn't mean that we should completely stop the economic growth. That approach will not be viable. That solution will not be viable. Just write 1 or 2 points. Just write one good paragraph, it will be good. Important features of or before that you can write economic development implies, just write a paragraph. Economic development implies changes in income, savings and investment along with progressive changes in socio-economic structure of country. The development relates to growth of human, growth of human capital, decrease in inequality figures, and structural changes that improve the quality of life of the population. All right, one more paragraph related to the human development. As per United Nations Development Program, human development can be defined as in double quote you can write a process of enlarging people's choices. A process of enlarging people's choices. It talks about three essential choices. Three essential choices. First, acquire better knowledge. To have access to resources. To have access to better resources, and also choice to live a long and healthy life. Knowledge, standard of knowledge, resources, and live a long and healthy life. So, these are the three choices. All right. Even you can write one paragraph for the sustainable development. Sustainable development is simply, I am giving the definition given by the Brundtland Commission. Sustainable development is development which meets the needs of the present generation, without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. Now, in this economic development, as I said, there is one more topic. There are lots of issues also. So, we have two very important problems that you need to understand. First of all, there are certain problems, issues associated with the economic development. Why the economic development is not happening? So, we will come back to that. But before that, you also need to understand that there is a problem of measurement. So, how this problem of measurement is happening, as I told you, that like HDI, so human development index is simply prepared on the basis of particularly your per capita income. It talks about the expected years of schooling, mean years of schooling. It talks about the particularly your life expectancy at birth. But let's suppose that someone is saying that it doesn't talk about the gender parity. Might be country is very high HDI, countries mean years of schooling, expected years of schooling, as everything is very good. But there is no women's freedom, women's choices, conditions. They are not allowed to go outside, they are not allowed to work, they are not allowed to participate in the sports, they cannot go outside alone. They need, you can say, protection either from the father or from the husband. So that is not the real development. One particular section of the society is not having the choices. That is not a development. So measurement is very big challenge. Now, other than this, even the kind of political system in any area is existing is also can said to be a problematic for the development. Like it will come out that freedom of press is also very important component of the development. Even in literacy, like in our country, there is a great, you can say, criticism. Some of the Western economic geographers, they always criticize, in our case, literacy. What is literacy? So if you will look out the literacy, how we count as per our census, so our approach is to just include the people that are age 7 and above. So age 7 and above, if they can read, write in any language, so they will be considered as literate. So if they are capable of just reading, writing in any language, they can be considered as literate. So the might be they are not having that mental development, that real might be they are in class 5th, but they are not able to solve a subtraction or addition, or they are not having the clarity about the tables. So it's a development as HDI is can't be said to be a guarantee for the real development, right? So there are lots of subjectivity involved. Also, there is a difference of choices. Meaning of development is also different for the different societies. Let's say you guys, for you the development means, might be some of you have been passed out from one of the premier institute of our country. So might be some of you are coming out from the IIMs, from the IITs, from the NITs. और अगर आप उसके बाद might be you are already placed, या अगर उसके बाद आप जॉब ढूंढने जाते तो you are getting 30 lakh, 20 lakh rupees per annum package. वहीं पे हमारे पास कुछ ऐसे हैं कि those who are not able to study the graduation itself and they are just 10+2 pass, and their thought process is to let's just have some 10,000, 15,000 rupee job if I'll get, then the development will. So the meaning of development is different. For some poor people, sending their children to the school is the development. Providing the healthcare facility is a development. Institutional delivery is the development. Whereas for someone who is wealthy, someone who is rich, for them the meaning of development can be different. Not because of the inclusion or exclusion, just because of the choices. What kind of choices you are referring? What kind of choices you are looking for? So, this choices and the inclusion and exclusion of the element changes, and there are a lot of subjectivity involved. That is why there is a very big challenge of the measurement of this development. That is why this development becomes a very wide spread concept. It is not a narrow concept, whereas the economic growth is very narrow concept. Economic growth will always be measured in terms of income. अगर आपकी लास्ट ईयर इनकम 10,000 थी, इस साल 12,000 हो गई, तो आपकी इनकम बढ़ी है. लास्ट ईयर 10,000 थी और 5,000 हो गई, इनकम घटी है. सो देयर इज अ वेरी objectivity involved in case of economic growth, but in case of development, very lot of subjectivity involved. Now, some of the problems related to the economic development. Country like India, obviously in economic development there will be some of the role of the physical. So, natural obstacles always be effective, be it your climatic, like it is very difficult to have a development in case of a real development in case of some of the gorge, some of the valleys, some of the Mount Everest or some cold desert. So, development will be limited. It is not like that development can't be, but it will be limited. Providing the services, providing the facilities will be limited. Climatic, physiographic, then you will have relief, higher part of the mountain, that is specifically the area that is having more than 1500, 1800 meter height, providing the development is always happens to be comparatively difficult as compared to some of the plateau area, some flat area. Then in India, you will find that we have very good economic growth, but economic growth has not transformed the economic development in the similar manner. And what is the main problem in country like India is overpopulation. Population is very high as compared to the resources. Sometimes resource deficiency. So, sometimes resource deficiency will play very important role in case of development. Sometimes might the resource is there, like African countries, resource is there, but resource tapping is not being done. Why? Because of the technological know-how is lacking. Because there is a, yes, resource deficiency is there. So, you can have two very classical example, African countries and you can have Japan. Both the places you will have less resource, but look out the development. So, Japan is highly developed. Why? Because they have the technological advancement, and because of the technological advancement, they are not only harnessing the resource, but also they are maintaining they are capable of maintaining their resources. So, they are following this sustainable development. So, these are some of the main, sometimes you will have the political system itself. Like in Syria. So, country like Syria, you will have the ongoing some of the civil war situation, some of the crisis is going war like crisis, like you will have the Ukraine. So, if there will be a frequent political instability, there will be frequent conflict with the neighboring area, development will be comparatively lesser. So, this debate of growth and development almost became very popular, and more concept models have been propagated. Primarily you will find after 50s, after in the second half of the 20th century. So, in second half of the 20th century, more ideas, more models have been developed related to the growth and development. And basically you will find most of the concept theories that have been propagated, one set have tried to tries to criticize the existing model prevalent throughout the countries, or primarily you can say capitalism. So, one set of the theories try to criticize the capitalism, and they tries to tell that all the problems is associated with the capitalism. And if we want to have real development throughout the world in any particular area or in one particular region, country throughout the world, so we need to move ahead, we need to move forward from this capitalism. So, here obviously you can say they were highly influenced by the idea of Karl Marx. Then you will have very popular Wallerstein's world system theory. Even the core periphery model also tries to follow this, but the core periphery model is kind of model of development which is more regional in perspective. In the second group, we will have the like very popular Rostov's stages of growth. Rostov's stages of growth. So, we will quickly look out these two. Rostov's stages of growth. Rostov happens to be the American historical economist, geographer, and he simply tries to put an, you can say, development model where he suggested the social economic development is based on economic growth. So, when the economic growth happens, socio-economic development will happen. So, economic growth and socio-economic development is closely linked up. If economic growth will happen, socio-economic development is bound to happen. So, this was the simple idea. And the second idea was that this economic growth is not possible to be sudden. It follows some, you can say, time frame. So, he was simply talking about the temporal growth. And the temporal growth he suggested in stages. He simply talked about that the development will only be possible in 5 stages. So, economic growth will happen in 5 stages, and this 5 stage will result into the economic development. He simply suggested these 5 stages as stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 and stage 5. So, he simply talks on the 5 stages growth. Here you can say economic growth, and here you can say time. So, this is how the stage will the growth will happen in different stages in particularly respect to time. Stage 1 is simply your primitive stage, stage 2 is your precondition to take off, stage 3 is your take off, stage 4 is derived to maturity, and it is having a age of mass consumption. Now, just try to understand. Stage 1 is your primitive stage. So, when he tried to tell the primitive stage, he simply suggested in this stage, most of the societies happens to be in, you can say, they are mostly agricultural. The economy, the economic activity that is being prevalent happens to be the only agriculture, and agriculture is also not on the basis of scientific. So, there is no scientific agriculture. So, obviously, most of the agriculture is rudimentary, shifting cultivation, or you can say subsistence in nature. Agriculture is not performing. Agriculture is not performing. Why agriculture is not performing? Because there is no investment. So, investment is not there, industrialization is not there, agriculture is not performing. Overall, the economic growth is very low. Economic growth is very low, so economic development will not happen. Also, this is the time period when peoples are more, you can say, accustomed to their customs will be very rigid, cultures is also very narrow. So, mostly people will have, they will have lots of superstition. So, people have lots of superstition, custom will be very solid, very rigid customs, and they are not ready to leave the general belief that the people will have it. So, mostly through this model of Rostov's stages of development, Rostov was trying to justify the English people or the British people's colonialism. So, in a way he was also trying to justify that why colonialism is very important. His idea, and also when colonialism he is justifying, in a way he is also justifying the capitalism. So, the stage 1, the societies will continue to be in that stage, be it your 100 years, be it your 200 years, and it will reaches in the stage 2. So, stage 2 it will reaches. Now, in the stage 2, how it will reaches? It will reaches with the outside intervention. Outside intervention he is talking. He is simply talking about the stimuli. So, some extra thing needed, and extra thing is needed. Which is the extra thing that he is talking about? Colonialism. So, it is the colonial structure which he is trying to justify. So, he simply suggested that when the Britishers come or whatever the form, they will bring the investment, and when they will bring the investment, then only you will have some form of the industrialization, some form of the manufacturing will start. Obviously, this manufacturing at not large scale, but it will start. Some new ideas, some new changes will be brought, like in case of your agriculture. So, they will move from the subsistence to might be intensive subsistence. Some of the area people will start looking out for some cash crop, like most of the Britishers have been developed this tea cultivation. They have also propagated the indigo cultivation in different part of the country. So, he is trying to justify. Then comes your third stage, that is takeoff. This is the very short time period. So, as per Rostov, it is 20-30 years. It is 20-30 years time period. So, in this time period, there will be some form of the industrialization. Industrialization will be mostly there, and countries are most of the societies agricultural activity, or you can say primary activity, is being substituted by the secondary and tertiary activity. There will be a lot of demand, and if there will be a lot of demand, so mostly the development will happen. Coming to the third stage, fourth stage, that is derived to maturity. So, now the manufacturing has started, but now the focus will be shifted to the some of the, you can say, diversification. So, there will be diversification. Also, here what is happening, rather than just having the manufacturing, rather than just having the trade, focus will be to just grow for the self-reliant, means import will be almost, you can say, the country, the government will try to check their import. So, they will focus more on the export oriented activity. So, if we are exporting more and more, obviously we will try to generate the investment, because the whole growth model has started from that outside influence. So, because it has all started from the outside influence, that is why here in case of drive to maturity, we will focus on the almost, you can say, already we have a lot of investment is there, but when you will have more and more export activity, export oriented activity as compared to the import, obviously there will be more and more, you can say, foreign exchange, you will earn more foreign exchange, so you will have more money in the hand. Also, healthcare facilities improve, infrastructure will improve, a modern form of the infrastructure will also be there, energy diversification will also be there, people will have different modes of the energy. So, all these things will happen, and obviously then we will move to the age of high mass consumption. In high mass consumption, the labor cost is very high, and the tertiary economic activity is very great in demand. High and skilled labor is there, the lifestyle, the living standard have improved, cost of living have almost, you can say, increased to a great level. So all these things will happen in the next stage. Just write 1 or 2 points. Rostov's model assumes that capitalism is the underlying structure of the society. It does not seek to explain the sequence of changes, Also, the terminologies used by Rostov happens to be very vague. Also, next point. The stages suggested by the Rostov for growth are very unrealistic. As lots of countries have directly reached to the fourth stage, from stage 2 without any outside influence. You can give the example of China, you can give the examples of India, you can give the examples of USSR. So you can give example of China, India, USSR. So just try to understand that development, economic growth and economic development is not temporal in nature. Time can not be a guarantee. Technological know-how, technological advancement, human capital, human resources, the research and development, these are more important as compared to simply the outside influence. Like in 1990, almost you can say 6, when after the even before that, when all the countries were not supporting, then also we have gone for the you can say nuclear weapons. We have tested our nuclear weapons, and after that there has been lots of restrictions have been put on us. So when lots of restrictions have been put on us, nobody was almost ready to share. Before that, even in 1970s also, nobody was ready to share the technological know-how to how to harness the energy through the nuclear almost fusion. we have started developing our own indigenous technology. We have started developing our own indigenous technology. And in fact, lot of time you will find that you might have just have the idea perception that it was the globalization, it was only the liberalization and privatization that led to this phenomenal growth. Obviously, LPG reform was needed, but the investment that we have done in our education, happens to be the real reason behind the change. We have started almost utilizing the internet facility. We have started focusing more on the outsourcing job, but for that we were having our own labor pool. So, in IT sector, in all the service sector, there has been a huge requirement, and that requirement will be fulfilled by the talent that we were having. So, let's suppose that we are not having the talent, तो कितना भी आपके पास time होता, कितना भी आप LPG कर लें, the development will not happen. All right. On the same line, Wallersteins also try to propose the model. His model is simply based on the world system, and when he referred this world system, he doesn't mean it as a political system. So, he simply suggested that it is not the political system that will result into development. So, economic growth is not associated with this, rather this world system is simply the world economy. World system is economy. Then he has almost taken the same line of core and periphery, and in the core periphery he simply considered core happens to be the developed part. So, developed countries of the world, there happens to be the core. Periphery happens to be the developing countries, poor countries. Developing and poor countries. Now, most of the developed countries here having investment, human resources, here having the technology, here having mostly industry, here you will have the production. Whereas the developing countries, they are just having the raw material. So, raw material is being given to developed countries. So, developed countries will just produce and they will become export oriented. Whereas the developing country, which is actually the resources, raw material, they will become almost, you can say, importing countries. So, they will need to import. If you will look out the situation, like cotton textile were booming earlier time period, but when the Britishers have started taking control in India, they have tried to almost, you can say, devastate our cotton textile sector. And how they have done this? They have started almost manufacturing the machine made goods not in India but in the mills of UK, mills of Britain, and for that they have taken almost, they have sent all the cottons, most of the particularly raw materials from here, and they sent to the Britain, and there they have started manufacturing, and after the manufactured product has been brought to the country. So more and more manufactured products have been brought in the country. So because of that, what happened, most of the people that were doing here, because they were mostly producing through the handmade, so handmade product will not be able to survive much, because the cost of production will be very high as compared to the machine made. So this is something that is being almost, you can say, the system. So this system, that is model of the Wallerstein, suggests that whatever the inequalities we have, whatever the problems we have, it is because of the model that we are following. It is because of this capitalist kind of model, where the developed countries are supposed to just keep on developing, and the developing countries which is having the raw material resources, they will always have the problem related to the development. Just write 2-3 lines. In 1974, Immanuel Wallerstein published a paper titled as The Rise and Future Demise of the World Capital System. The rise and future demise next point. In 1976, he again published Modern World System 1, Capitalist Agriculture and the Origins of the European World Economy in the 16th century. Next point. According to him, world system is world economy which is connected through market rather than a political center. Different reasons of the world are interconnected with each other for the requirements of food, fuel and protection, Also, two different countries / polities will compete with each other for domination. So this was the time period that was in the backdrop of Cold War period. Compete for domination without the emergence of any single center. Without the emergence of one single center. Alright, so most of the other part I already have explained, all the other features. Last closing line, closing paragraph you can write. Primarily this theory has been propagated, primarily this concept has been propagated in 70s to counter the modernization theory of development and to blame political system for inability of the developing countries to catch up the level of the development of developed countries. All right, so that's it for this world system, and we'll continue the discussion of economic geography in the next session. Thank you.